Okay, these are my vinyl records from of death metal from the late 80s to the very early 90s. Basically, the golden age of death metal in a way. Um, First two records are Death, Scream Bloody Gore. This one's actually from 1987. Came out May 25th. I'm getting these dates from Wikipedia. This is Death's first record. Basically, a lot of people would say that this started death metal, and it's a good record to have. In my opinion, it's not their best record, but it's very brutal. Very great guitar tone, and just some good straight ahead death metal. This came out August 28th, 1988. This is Death, Leprosy. This album was the first Death album that I ever heard, and really, really, really good stuff. This one has a lot more memorable riffs from, a lot of different songs, and the vocals are very clear. You can pretty much understand everything that Chuck Schuldiner is singing on this record, and the riffs are just really, really good. The songs are really good. Leprosy, Born Dead, Pull the Plug, Open Casket, Primitive Ways, all those are great songs. This is probably a really good start here record if you're going to get into death metal for the first time. Like real true death metal. Yeah, great record. Now we're going to get into records that came out between 1989 and 1991. None of these are original presses. I might have a couple in here, but majority of these are just represses. Some of these might still be available pretty cheap. Some of them might be waiting for a repress, but I think a lot of these are pretty much available. First one from 1989, June 14th, 1989 is Obituary, Slowly Rerot. This is one of the first Florida death metal bands to come out. And yeah, really, really good stuff here. This is really raw. It doesn't have a very full production sound. Guitars are really thin, but you can hear every instrument, and great distortion on this record. Really, really good sound for a first record. Really, really good stuff on here. Internal Bleeding, Godly Beings, Slowly We Rot, of course. Title track is really, really good. Really good stuff on here. This is a very raw record, but it is Obituary's first record. They might have just been barely out of their teens when they made this. I'm not sure how old they were, but really cool stuff. Pretty cool cover too. Next record came out October 28th, 1989. And this is Bolt Thrower, Realm of Chaos. I just got this. It's a repress. This is, I don't know if this is Bolt Thrower's first record or not. I can't remember. Another great record though. This record the guitar tone on this is really bass heavy. Everything is really like mushed together, all the instruments. It just sounds like a rumbling force. It's a really different from Obituary's very treble sounding record. This is a way more bassy, really low guitar, very low tuned, everything, but really, really good record. Yeah, Realm of Chaos. I believe they had to change the cover on this for the repress, because the bolt thrower is actually a weapon in the Realm of Chaos, or not Realm of Chaos, but the board game for these miniatures, and they had to change that for licensing reasons, I believe. Good record though. And this one's on Earache as well, so this is one of the first Earache records that I'm showing. Earache was a big record label back in the late 80s, early 90s. Put out tons of death metal. Put out a lot of American death metal even. I believe UK. These guys are from the UK, I believe. Bolt Thrower. Um, Carcass, November 4th, 1989. Symphonies of Sickness. This is right out of their grindcore phase of their first album, but this is definitely more death metal and a lot more variety. The riffs are really, really good on this, but very chaotic sounding record. Really, really raw. Similar kind of solo-y rock, but like the production values back then for this stuff was just, in the studio must not have been that great, but it also gives it a really unique and raw, almost demo sounding sound. But yeah, lots of cool stuff on here. These guys, their lyrics and their covers are, of course, legendary with their real life autopsy and, body parts collages. This is actually the inner sleeve for this record, and I put it in the outer. Or I made it the cover because that was, used to be the normal cover. But this is not the Carcass that you are used to if you've listened to, only Heartwork or what's the other one? The Surgical Steel. This is definitely a more raw sounding Carcass. I don't have Descanting the Insalubrious, but that's probably my favorite Carcass record. The riffs on that record and the sound quality on that record is really, really good. I think that came out either 90 or 91, but I actually do have it coming in. It should be here soon, but it's not here right now. This one came out, Pestilence, Consuming Impulse, in December 25th, 1989. So we're getting at the end of 89, the 80s, or the late 80s here with the records that I have anyway. This is a fantastic record. This is probably one of the best records. I think it's even better, in the style of death metal that I like than the Carcass, the Bolt Thrower, and the Obituary. This record just sounds fantastic. The guitar sound very dry sounding, and Martin Van Drunen's vocals are just so raspy and guttural. Really, really good. But what stands out most on this record is I think every single song on here has a memorable riff, like a riff or a breakdown that is just so freaking memorable and good. Love this record. Really, really, really good record. Most of these records back in 1989 and 91 and 90 and 91, when I was in high school and just getting out of high school, is when we, me and my friends have purchased these, on cassette or CD at the time. This is a fantastic record. One of the best death metal, early death metal records, like pure death metal records. All right, now we're getting into the 90s. This is February 5th, 1990. This is the first Paradise Lost record, Lost Paradise. This is more in the doom death stuff, but it's still really, really brutal. The guitar tone on this is really different as well. Almost like, a highly distorted 70s, guitar, in it, but it's just really, really thick. And of course, the vocals on this are just super guttural. I mean, if you like, Michael Ackerfeld from Opeth, his death metal stuff vocals, very reminiscent of that. I mean, his vocals are really deep too, but this guy is just even more just brutal on this record. And it's definitely more death doom though. It's not as, there's not a lot of speed on this at all. Whereas some of the other albums have, speed as part of, the death metal. But on this album, not so much. It's really slowed down. It's still really, really good stuff. Every song has a memorable riff again. And I think that's real important for death metal in general. So it's a good one. Next one here is May 15th, 1990. And this is another UK band, I believe, called Cancer. This is really good stuff. Again, really good riffs. really, you know, again, demo sounding almost, really minimal. You know, these guys are just three guys, guitar, bass, drums, and vocals. So yeah, really stripped down. But again, were so key to death metal. And I think a lot of newer bands don't pay attention to that as much. They really just speed through a lot of songs, and if they have something memorable, they don't repeat it enough or whatever. But on this record and almost every song on this has a memorable riff and some sing-along stuff. Yeah, CFC, Cancer Fucking Cancer, that's great. Imminent Catastrophe, good song. To the Gory End, Die Die, and Jeff Tardy, I believe, or the singer from Obituary, John Tardy, I believe, sings backup vocals, I believe, on Die Die. Yeah, John Tardy does backup vocals on Die, and it's completely obvious that it's him. I mean, his vocals are pretty crazy too for death metal. These guys are pretty good though. It's a really good record. This is a reissue as well. And another record from 1990, June 4th, 1990. This is a classic. This is what you would say is almost a definitive, you know, these other records came before it, but this is like the Swedish, you know, Swedes that came in now, you know, and just like they're doing to music nowadays, you know, taking what everybody's done and just making it that much better. This is Left Hand Path from Entomb. This record is fantastic. The guitar tone again on this record is even today, bands are trying to duplicate this sound with Sunlight Studios, you know, guitar tone that Entomb basically invented for this record. Another must have, along with the Pestilence. This is just amazing. You know, the riffs, the vocals, again, can't say this enough. This, I think, was the first album that I ever had on CD. And I think a friend of mine bought the CD for me. I bought my CD player, you know, for like 99 bucks at Kmart or something. And then he bought me this CD, I think, for my birthday. But fantastic record. This is a classic, must have. All those are represses. And next is July 1st, 1990. Napalm, Death, Harmony, Corruption. This is, again, similar to Carcass, where these guys came from grindcore first. And this is really maybe the only record that sounds like this from Napalm Death, where it's almost pure, straight-up death metal. This is definitely fast, like, with the Entomb stuff, you know, they have mid-pace to fast, but this is pretty much every song on here is really, really fast. And there's some really, really great riffs on here. Yeah, Vision Quest, If Truth Be Known, Malicious Intent, Unfit Earth. Great songs. Chains Up Behind Us, Mind Snare, Suffer the Children. Almost every song on here is near perfect. Great. Again, guitar tone. It sounds different than the other bands. It doesn't, you know, have that Sunlight Studios sound, that unique sound, but just really really distortion heavy, and like I think the bass even sounds like it's a guitar almost. How cool, how distorted it is. Really good record. And again, like, these are all classic from, you know, basically 89 to 91 records that, in my opinion, are must-haves. This one, August 17, 1990. Friends of mine saw this cover, I remember, on cassette. I think I bought it. We were just like, what the hell is this? This is Cannibal Corpse, Eaten Back to Life. This is almost like comedy metal in a way, just how ridiculous the lyrics are. It's almost like, you know, the Carcass stuff have lyrics that are really medical terminology, but these guys just really just went raw, you know. Shredded humans, edible autopsy, mangled, shattered remains, shattered brains, born in a casket, undead will feast, bloody chunks. I mean, this is their first record, Cannibal Corpse. Fantastic. Again, death metal is, in my opinion, mostly about the riffs and almost every song on here has memorable riffs. And I think Glenn Benton does backup vocals from Deicide on some of these songs. I don't have a Deicide record to show just because I don't have one, but I would, if I were to show a Deicide record, I'd show their first self-titled album. It'd be in here somewhere between the 89 and the 90s, I believe. I can't remember the exact date, but first Cannibal Corpse record, must have. Even though Chris Barnes is on vocals, you know, I don't mind the Chris Barnes era. I know a lot of people don't like Chris Barnes as much, but I think he's a great vocalist. And I think the band was really, really good with changing it up from record to record. Those early records with him. And I don't mind his vocals. I really don't. His lyrics are, you know, yeah, childish and fucking weird, but it's still a great record. Cannibal Corpse, lots of great riffs. And I think most people would say that, you know, this might be their best record in the Chris Barnes days anyway, for sure. Really good record. Next record, this one is up there with the Pestilence and the Entombed. This is Obituary, Cause of Death. This press has something that really bugs a lot of people, and me kind of included. The song Dying and Find the Arise on the CD, they kind of go together, you know, like there's no break in between the songs, but on the album, of course, Dying is the last song on side A, and Find the Arise is the first song on side B. So they should continuously go, but they don't. Other than that, this, you know, that weird thing about the pressing of the album doesn't affect how great this album is. And between one of the best death metal album covers ever, I mean, between this and the Entombed, it's really, really close. Left Hand Path has such a great album cover, but this album cover is fantastic as well. And every single song on here is memorable, has a great riff that you're going to be, you know, thinking about in your head, and, you know, just playing over, you know, all the time. They're just going to be earworms for riffs. Infected, Body Bag, Chopped in Half, Circle the Tyrants, which is a cover song from Celtic Frost, Dying, Find the Arise, Cause of Death, which is a great song, Memories Made and Turned Inside Out, and then these two demo versions. But they could have just cut that off and, you know, did the album proper, I think, on the reissue, but they didn't. But anyway, great must-have, great riffs. This is a bit slower of a record, too, for the most part, mid-pace to slow, as far as the riffs and stuff like that and the songs. But it speeds up sometimes, but, you know, it really has a lot of slow parts, you know, that are just really, really good, but very, very memorable riffs. Next record, this one's kind of a departure from, well, kind of unique for the death metal records that came out at the time. This came out October 1st, 1990. This is Nocturnas, The Key. This is one of the first bands, death metal bands that our friends and I that we discovered, and, you know, they're on Earache as well, Earache Records, and their stuff they have like basically a keyboardist, a dedicated keyboardist, and he's not super prominent on every song, but there's like a keyboard part on almost every single song, and some of them there's more than others, but that was pretty unique at the time to have like a dedicated keyboardist that was actually playing with the band, not just, you know, doing soundscapes or something like that, or, you know, the kind of integral part of the songwriting. Really cool record. Again, a lot of good memorable riffs, but this is definitely more straightforward, and it's not a must-have, but it's definitely an interesting record that came out, you know, in the early 90s or the late 90s. Not the late 90s, but late 1990 of that year in October. These guys were one of the opening bands on the Grind Crusher tour with, I believe it was these guys, Godflesh, I want to say Napalm Death, I think were there as well. Can't quite remember, but these guys are pretty good. Just pretty good. Not a must-have, but if you're going to collect you know, some earache, some early 90s death metal from earache, you definitely probably want to pick that up. This one is not probably going to be on a lot of people's lists, but for me, it's a fantastic record. This came out October 15th, 1990. So just really a couple weeks after Nocturnas. This is Atrocity, Hallucinations. This came out on Nuclear Blast Records. This might have been like when we bought this back in the day when I first listened to it. You know, I don't think I had any albums on that label. But Atrocity, Hallucinations, these guys, really good. Matthias Roeder, Alex Kroll, you know, these guys are just, the riffs that they came up with on these guys on this album are really cool. It's almost like a proto-tech death record, kind of. You know, the time changes on this record are really interesting. The riffs go in a lot of places that you wouldn't expect. You know, it's not straightforward, you know, fast part, slow part, you know, or fast part, chugging part, chorus. You know, there's a lot of weaving in and out of the songs of different ideas. And like I said, a lot of key changes, a lot of off-kilter stuff. Really good record. This is one of the original press of this record. I don't know if this was repressed at all, but I didn't pay that much for this, so you could probably still get this for probably like maybe 30, 40 bucks maybe. Really good record. Not as popular as in the death metal scene probably, because I don't see a lot of people mentioning it, but still fantastic record. Now we're getting into November 26, 1990, and these guys went in the studio pretty much right after Entomb did and made another brutal record with great riffs. It has that same like razor blade, you know, guitar sound that the Entombed record has, very similar, maybe a little bit more bassy sounding than the you know, the higher treble sounding of the other guitar tone, but still really good, really raw. Yep, it was recorded at Sunlight Studios as well. They used just a slightly different guitar tone, but it's still almost the same thing. It just sounds just a little bit different. This record, the songs are a bit shorter on this. I think the album overall is much shorter. And Michael Amott from Arch Enemy. I think this might have been his first band, or at least his first recording that he ever did. It's definitely his most well-known thing that he did at this time in late 1990. It was recorded in February 90, but came out at the end of the year. Great record. This was on a CD split, I believe, with Cadaver that I had back in the day. And you can pick this up, you know, right off your rake now. Great, great record. Again, the riffs are really important on here. Dark Recollection, Torn Apart, Blasphemies in the Flesh, Infestation of Evil. I can just read all the songs because they're really good. That's Carnage. I don't think I even said the name of the band. This is Carnage, Dark Recollections. Great, great record. In the vein of the Entombed. All right, now here's an interesting one. This one came out January 13th, 1991. This is Dark Throne, their first record, Soulside Journey. This was before they became like an ultra, you know, black metal band. This is definitely a pure death metal record. Again, really, really great riffs. A lot of mid-pace stuff, but there's fast on here too. And yeah, just really, really good riffs on this record. The guitar tone is really cool, you know, I would just describe it as loose, but, you know, distorted, of course. It doesn't have the same razor blade, you know, sound that, you know, the Carnage and the Entomb record has, but really, really good guitar tone. And it's just pure death metal. Vocals are really, you know, kind of slurry sounding in a way. I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't think that they're that like when he sings, I guess you could pick up words here and there, but for the most part, I think he's really buried in the mix. But he's still really, really good. Soulside Journey, picked this, you know, back in the day, we were buying these blind. This is a Peaceville, so I think we had, back in the night, you know, 1990, 91 or whatever, when we got these, we had already bought, you know, as me and my friends, we would like all buy the same stuff. Somebody had already gotten Paradise Lost, so we started looking for stuff on the Peaceville label, and I think we came across Dark Throne, and great death metal record. Obviously, these guys changed quite a bit after this record. They jumped on the black metal bandwagon, kind of. I don't know if they jumped on a bandwagon or not, but they definitely changed their sound from their original sound. That was on this record. And speaking of another Peaceville record, this is the second release from March 19th, 1991 from Paradise Lost. This is Gothic. Again, the guitar tone is very similar to the first record, vocals as well, but then they added keyboards and, you know, more Gothic sensibilities, you know, even the title, you know, Gothic, that was pretty on the nose for what you're going to get for this by listening to this record. A little bit more melodic too, you know, really more memorable choruses and stuff like that. Still, though, very brutal vocals. There's even some female vocals that come in, I think, on one or two songs on here. Really, really cool stuff. If you like the first Paradise Lost record, I don't see a reason why you're not going to like this one. This one, a lot of people like this one better. It, you know, kind of has that Gothic feel. And then, obviously, I think they changed their sound quite a bit from these first two records, you know, on. It became more straight ahead metal, heavy metal. And even, you know, kind of cut back on a lot of the death metal vocals, if all of the death metal vocals in some of the releases right after these. They kind of brought it back a little bit on the newer releases, I think, but I haven't really purchased much of that stuff. But these first two Paradise Lost records are great. Again, doom death, not a lot of speed on this. Really raw, just like death metal's supposed to be. Not polished at all. You know, doesn't have an overproduced sound. These records just sound great. These ones from the late 80s and early 90s. And another record. This one is when Roadrunner jumped on in Pestilence. I think, yeah, Pestilence came out on Roadrunner. But Roadrunner didn't, and also Obituary, Cause of Death, and Slowly Rot, I think all came out on Roadrunner. But this is another Roadrunner release that came out April 24th, 1991. Immolation, Dawn of Possession, in my opinion, their best record. I know a lot of people probably like their older stuff, but this was my first record from Immolation. And the bends on these records, you know, the wah bends that they do in the riffs, a lot of bends going on almost every single song on here. And to me, that makes it memorable. Including the riffs that are on here, really, really good. Into Everlasting Fire might be one of the, you know, top 5 death metal songs ever in a way. Such a great song. And very memorable, you know, lyrics. I can remember them just now. Also, the cover is freaking awesome. You know, like demons killing angels as they're, you know, getting killed and fighting out of the sky. A lot of their stuff, even after this, you know, like their newer stuff, you know, they stick to a lot of evil, you know, evil versus good, you know, religious stuff. Really good stuff. Dawn of Possession, Eternal Decadence, After My Prayers, great song. Great album from Immolation, Dawn of Possession, from 1991. And here's another record from May 1991. Now, obviously, if anybody's paying attention to this, they know that I don't have Altars of Madness on vinyl. As soon as a repress is available and I can find one at a decent price, under $50, I don't want to pay no more than that for a record that should be in press all the time. But this one I found a while ago. This was added pretty early in my collection, and I found it used. This is Blessed Are the Sick. This is a more mid-paced, has fast songs too, but it has a lot of mid-paced death metal on it, and the guitar tone is really muted on this, really low. Not like Bolt Thrower, the same thing, but, you know, it's not like super high, you know, in the mix or whatever. It's kind of like this, it seems like it's mixed at the same as the other instruments. Really cool sound. Trey Isaac thought does a good job on this. But yeah, it was different. It was, you know, from Altars of Madness, where it was just really a high-speed record, very fast. They definitely slowed it down on this one on a lot of songs, especially Fall from Grace. You know, so yeah, there's a lot of really good songs on here. And again, great riffs, just as death metal should be. But Altars of Madness might be the better record, probably is overall. But this one is real close behind. Really good record. Came out late 91. Or no, mid 91. I have 2 more records to show. This one came out later than I thought. I thought this came out earlier, but it didn't. This one came out May 28th, 1991. This is Dismember, Like an Ever-Flowing Stream. Fantastic record. This again, I believe, same thing, Sunlight Studios. I'm not 100%, but I believe I'm almost positive of that. And fantastic. These guys just did such a great job on this record. Override the Overture is, you know, just like some of these other songs, another top 5 death metal song ever written. And again, almost every song, if not every song on here, has a memorable riff that just sticks in your head as an earworm. Just fantastic, you know, something that is just like almost melodic and memorable, you know, just like a lot of these records have. You know, some of the early stuff, like the Obituary first record, maybe not as much, but, you know, this record for sure. And of course the buzzsaw sounding, or I said razor blades before, but it's more buzzsaw sounding record sound from this record is great. Like an Ever-Flowing Stream from Dismember. Sweden again, killing it. And the last record I have from 1991 came out September 3rd, 1991. This is Pestilence' second record. Or actually, this is their third record. Their first record, I don't have that record. I haven't listened to it much myself. Maleficus, something like that. I can't remember. But this is a great record. Testimony of the Ancients. Definitely different sound. No Martin Van Buren on this. There is, you know, it looks like there's a ton of songs on here, but every other song is like an intro to the next one or an interlude. So there's about half these songs are actual songs that last more than, you know, a minute or less. So, you know, still though, even with all that, you know, I think it was Patrick was his name. I can't remember I can't remember his last name, but he did the singing on this record. He does a good job. He's serviceable as a death metal guy. But again, great riffs on this. Interesting guitar sound. Again, this is like another kind of almost a technical death metal kind of thing. A lot of time changes in here that are interesting. It's not as straightforward as a lot of the other records. But still, excellent album. Great album cover too. I always like the mystery of this room. You know, with the circular thing in there. It's pretty cool. All right, that's all of the basically 89 to 91 death metal that I have. I would say that nearly every single one of these records are a must-have if you're into death metal and you're into the beginnings and the early days of death metal. And a lot of bands nowadays are trying to recreate the sound, the guitar tones on these records, and, you know, the magic kind of that existed in these early death metal records. All right, cool.